The monastery is well protected. Only Buddhist monks are allowed to go inside. Swamiji told him, I may not be a Buddhist monk, but I am at least a monk. So I am sure they will allow me. The guide said, it's your problem, not my problem. So the three of them came to the gates of the monastery. For a monastery which was so secretive, the gates were wide open. They were surprised. And the three of them walked in. And in no time they saw two hefty-looking Buddhist monks come towards them with threatening gesture. The interpreter told Swamiji and the German, let's go away. They are the experts in martial arts. They will beat us up into pulp. Better to go away. The German tourist went back. Before the interpreter could go away, Swamiji asked him, tell me what is Chinese for Indian yogi. Indian yogi. He said something. Swamiji learnt it, stood there in his characteristic pose, like this. The Buddhist monks, as soon as they came near him, threateningly, Swamiji immediately said, I am an Indian yogi. The monks stopped dead in their tracks. Their faces broke out into smiles and they started chattering away in Chinese. Om Namah Shri Yatirajaya.
Om Namah Shri Yatirajaya.
Vivekananda Suraye.
Vivekananda Suraye.
Satchit Sukha Swarupaya.
Satchit Sukha Swarupaya.
Swamine Tapaharine.
Swamine Tapaharine.
So where did we leave Swamiji behind yesterday?
China.
He got off the ship at Hong Kong and decided to travel.
He was on his way to Canton. He traveled overland, he wanted to see China. Finally came to Canton. Why did he want to visit Canton? He had heard that there is a Buddhist monastery in Canton which has a very famous library, and the library contains the manuscripts of Buddhist scriptural literature copied down painstakingly by hand by Fa Hien and Huyen Tsang. Remember them? Have you heard of them? History. Fa Hien came in the 3rd century AD or the Common Era, and Huyen Tsang 7th century Common Era. Both of them spent each about 20 years partly in Takshashila and partly in Nalanda. And when they were in Nalanda, both of them independently copied down the manuscripts. And these manuscripts were supposed to be in the library. Swamiji wanted to go there. There was a German tourist along with him, and the two of them hired a translator, an interpreter, Dubhashi. The Dubhashi told them, you can't go inside. The monastery is well protected. Only Buddhist monks are allowed to go inside. Swamiji told him, I may not be a Buddhist monk, but I am at least a monk. So I am sure they will allow me. The guide said, it's your problem, not my problem. So the three of them came to the gates of the monastery. For a monastery which was so secretive, the gates were wide open. They were surprised. And the three of them walked in. And in no time they saw two hefty-looking Buddhist monks come towards them with threatening gesture. The interpreter told Swamiji and the German, let's go away. They are the experts in martial arts. They will beat us up into pulp. Better to go away. The German tourist went back. Before the interpreter could go away, Swamiji asked him, tell me what is Chinese for Indian yogi. Indian yogi. He said something, Swamiji learnt it, stood there in his characteristic pose, like this. The Buddhist monks, as soon as they came near him, threateningly, Swamiji immediately said, I am an Indian yogi. The monks stopped dead in their tracks, their faces broke out into smiles, and they started chattering away in Chinese. Swamiji couldn't make out what it was. Only one word he could understand, tabiz. Tabiz. What is tabiz? Hindi speaking people. Tabiz. Amulet. This is normally worn by children who are suffering from diseases. Seeing that, the guide came back. Swamiji asked him, what is it they are chattering? What is it they are saying? Swamiji, they are welcoming you. They want you to come inside the temple, but they want tabiz. Swamiji understood what tabiz is, because he is from Kolkata, and Kolkata is famous for tantrics. But where could he get tabiz from? So he told those monks, get me 2 pieces of paper, something to write with, and 2 pieces of string. They brought them. Swamiji wrote on both the pieces of paper, Omkara. Rolled them, tied them to one of the strings. So he made 2 tabizas and he tied them on the right upper arm of the 2 monks. They were immensely happy. Then they asked, through the interpreter, Swamiji what he wants to see. He said, I want to see the library. They took him to library, showed Swamiji those manuscripts. Swamiji says in the letter, I saw that the script in which the text had been written was Ardha Magadhi, which has come from Sanskrit. Samskrita's daughter is Apabhramsha. Apabhramsha is the distorted version of Sanskrit, and one of the forms of Apabhramsha is Ardha Magadhi. Who is here from Bihar? You know, Buddhism and Jainism were local to Bihar. Buddha lived in Bihar. Mahavira lived in Bihar. And at the time of the Buddha, the language spoken in Bihar was Ardha Magadhi, not Pali. Pali was a language being spoken in Sri Lanka. When Ashoka sent his son Mahendra, daughter Sanghamitra, to Colombo, they took with them the scripts and they were converted to Pali. So many people seem to think Buddhism has been described in Pali. The original language is Ardha Magadhi. And Ardha Magadhi script is the script from which Bengali script has come about. So Swamiji was able to read it. So he has made a remark, Buddha actually spoke in Ardha Magadhi. When my wife and I were in Patna for that pranayama conference, we had been given a car and a driver, Rajkumar. Once I casually asked Rajkumar, do you know Ardha Magadhi? Yes, sir. Is it spoken even today? Yes, sir. In our village, all of us speak Ardha Magadhi. Then he asked me, have you heard Lalu Prasad Yadav? I said, yes. Lalu Prasad Yadav is in the habit of mixing Ardha Magadhi with Hindi. That is why, his language appears so strange to our ears. You must have heard Lalu Prasad Yadav.
Yes.
Huh? Bapre. The man is in jail now and he is running Bihar from the jail. He is such a powerful character. So Swamiji saw those manuscripts, was immensely happy. Then the 3 of them came out, they paid some money to the interpreter, and Swamiji and the German tourist came to the harbor to catch the ship which had come there from Hong Kong. Next halt was Osaka in Japan. Here again they were given the choice. Either they stay on board and come up to Yokohama, the harbor of Tokyo, or they go overland. Swamiji decided to go overland. He was a real tourist, wanted to see as many places as possible. So he caught a train in Osaka, which brought him to Nagasaki. You must have heard of Nagasaki? Yes. The famous city which was bombed in the Second World War. Nagasaki existed at that time. From Nagasaki, he came to Kyoto, the ancient capital of Japan. And from Kyoto, he came to Tokyo, the modern capital. You know, Tokyo has shown the world how to achieve the impossible. There was a time when Tokyo was considered the most polluted city in the world. The next one was Los Angeles. I don't know whether Los Angeles has been cleaned up, but Tokyo has been thoroughly cleaned up. The Japanese are meticulous. If they want to achieve something, they go ahead and achieve it. Swamiji stayed in a hotel organized by Thomas Cook and Sons, the travel agents, and one evening he went for a walk to a nearby park where there is a huge statue of Buddha sitting and meditating. He was looking at the statue when he heard some tourists, probably from America, talking softly by his side. Does not this gentleman look a little like Buddha? They compared Swamiji's face with the face of Buddha. They noted the resemblance. How many times in the US did people compare Swamiji's face with that of the Buddha? That is why Buddha was the ideal for Swamiji, and even in his room in Belur, he always used to have a bust of the Buddha, meditating Buddha. Then Swamiji came to the harbor, Yokohama, and caught another ship going to Vancouver. This is the ship. It is not a similar ship. This is the ship. There was an American lady who was in San Francisco, Mary Louise Burke. Mary Louise Burke has spent her entire lifetime researching the life of Swami Vivekananda. And the results of her research are to be found in 6 volumes. Swami Vivekananda in the West, New Discoveries. 4 volumes about his first visit, the last 2 volumes about his second visit. She went to Japan, she went to Yokohama to make inquiries about this ship and was given a copy of the photograph of this ship, the Empress of India, in which Swamiji traveled to Vancouver. In the hotel itself, Swamiji had met several Indians. He met a few of them on board the ship also. But there was one Indian with whom Swamiji struck a very good friendship. Jamshedji Tata. Have you heard of him? Yes. The founder of the Tata dynasty. He was the person who established the iron and steel works in a god-forsaken place in Bihar. A township grew around that, and that town was named after Tata, Jamshedpur. So Jamshedpur is based upon, or is given the same name as Jamshedji Tata. He also constructed Taj Hotel in Bombay. You remember that was one of the targets of attack by the Pakistani terrorists. Why did he build the Taj Hotel? There's a nice story behind it. He had gone to England for some work and he wanted to stay in a 5-star hotel, and he saw in the hotel in the front a board, dogs and Indians not allowed. He got offended. When they returned to India, to Bombay, he got this magnificent hotel constructed, the big board, dogs and Englishmen not allowed. Everybody protested. The viceroy came all the way from Kolkata to meet Tata. Tata said, get that board removed. I will see this board is removed. What a patriot he was, a lover of the country. So he and Swamiji struck a wonderful friendship because both of them were basically patriots. Tata was going to Chicago not for the Parliament of Religions, but for another event known as the World Exposition. I will tell you later what is this exposition. Every evening they used to go for a walk on the deck, promenade. One day Tata told Swamiji, Swamiji, it is my ambition to start a Vedic school on scientific lines in India so that our people can be introduced to the Vedas in a scientific manner. Swamiji said, Mr. Tata, there are enough Vedic schools in India and Vedas are not in a hurry to be treated scientifically, but I have a feeling what we require more is a research institute in science. Think about it. Tata said he would think about it. In the beginning of 1898, he was in Bombay, Tata. He wrote a letter to Swamiji in Kolkata. Swamiji, I hope you remember me as your fellow passenger from Yokohama to Vancouver. My plans are finalized. I would appreciate if you kindly take over the establishment of this Science Institute. Swamiji replied, I am very busy with my own work. My health is not all right and my friends are pressurizing me to go back to the United States. However, I wish you all the luck. Swamiji entered Mahasamadhi in 1902. 2 years later, Tata passed away in Bombay, 1904, leaving 2 sons behind. The Viceroy in Kolkata put all kinds of spokes into the project of Tata. He casually told the Privy Council in London that Indians are incapable of scientific thinking. They are a superstitious bunch. And those ignoramuses in England, the Privy Council, believed him. Tata was disappointed, he died. His sons did not give up. They went straight to London. They went to the Royal Society building. You know, one of the oldest scientific societies in the world is the Royal Society of London. They met the president, Sir William Ramsay. Incidentally, the president of the Royal Society is invariably a Nobel Prize winner. One of the oldest presidents was Sir Isaac Newton. Such a distinguished organization. So they went straight to this president of the Royal Society. They told him, it is our father's desire to start a science research institute in India. The Viceroy is raising all kinds of objections. Ramsay asked them, what is his objection? He says, Indians are incapable of science. William Ramsay blew up. What nonsense is he talking? Has he not heard of Jagdish Chandra Bose?
Yes.
Has he not heard of Prafulla Chandra Ray? By that time they had become household names in England. Jagdish Chandra Bose in the field of botany and Prafulla Chandra Ray in the field of chemistry. Who says Indians are incapable? He went straight to the Privy Council. And once the president of the Royal Society came to them, the Privy Council buckled. They gave permission. Then the 2 brothers told Ramsay, can you come to India and identify a spot? Ramsay came to India, spent 3 months going around the country, identified the spot, and then told the 2 brothers, I am going to send you one of my own Ph.D. students who has recently got his Ph.D. He is also a fellow of the Royal Society of London, William Foster, Maurice Foster. He will establish the institute. And the institute came into existence on the 31st of July, 1919 or 1909. Where?
Bangalore. IISc.
Where in Bangalore? Indian Institute of Science, north of Malleshwaram. I joined there as a student in 1956. I left that after 5.5 years to go to IIT Madras. I returned in 1996 January. Went to pay a casual visit to IISc. I was caught hold of by the secretary of the Alumni Association, dragged into his office, and he convinced me to become the junior vice president of the Alumni Association. I did the job for 2 years, then became senior vice president 2 years, and then 2 years president of the Alumni Association. There is one more person in our campus who is an alumnus of the Indian Institute of Science, H.R. Nagendra. He did his M.Tech, ME and Ph.D. from mechanical engineering. He was 6 years junior to me, and both of us are very proud of the fact that we are alumni of that great institution. It owes its existence to the idea of Swami Vivekananda. That was recognized and openly announced in the year 2009 during the centenary celebrations. So it gives me happiness to remember that I was associated with an institution which owes its inspiration to Swami Vivekananda. Around the 20th or 25th of July, the ship reached Vancouver, Canada. Swamiji got down with his 3 bags and had to stay in a hotel overnight because the ship was delayed and the train he was supposed to catch to go to Chicago had already left for that day. So he spent about 24 hours in Vancouver and then next day caught a train to go to Chicago. No direct train. He had to change trains at 2 places. One was Winnipeg, still in Canada, and the other was St. Louis in Mysore. And the last halt was Chicago. He got into the compartment in Vancouver, a second-class compartment. The tickets had been given by Thomas Cook and Sons. He saw a lady sitting in that compartment who went on staring at him, middle-aged lady. She didn't speak to him, he didn't speak to her. They silently observed each other. The natural scenery around us absolutely beautiful. I think they were probably crossing the Rockies, and that landscape was beautiful. Then they came to Winnipeg. In Winnipeg, that lady caught another train. Swamiji got into the train going to St. Louis. In St. Louis, again he changed the train, and towards the end of July 1893, he came to Chicago. The interesting fact is, in the place in Vancouver where Swamiji disembarked, recently a statue of Swamiji was unveiled by the Indian community in Vancouver. And in Winnipeg, we had one IISc student from Winnipeg. He told us that before he came to India, they had a similar function in the railway station of Winnipeg, where outside the railway station a statue of Swamiji has been unveiled. And St. Louis, Missouri has a Vedanta center. Swami Chetanananda is the president of that Vedanta center, very famous center. And Chicago, to commemorate the centenary of the Parliament of Religions, in a public park, a huge statue of Swami Vivekananda was unveiled by Tom Daly, the mayor of Chicago. That statue is just a little shorter than our statue near the gate. And mind you, this statue of Swami Vivekananda is the tallest outdoor statue in the world. When you go back from this place, remember that. Tomorrow itself you're going to have a look at that. That statue is the tallest, that is a picture, tallest statue of Swamiji in the open, but I don't think there is any hall which can contain such a huge statue. And what a regal stance you see in this particular statue. Chicago railway station was full of people, like our own Indian railway stations. What is the reason? The year was 1893. United States was celebrating the 400th anniversary of the so-called landing of Christopher Columbus on American soil. But the funny thing is, Columbus never came to United States. It was one of his commandants who came in a ship, landed in the United States. But history books give the credit to Christopher Columbus. That is the reason why the word Columbus appears very often in the American geography, right? You are going to see the Parliament building itself, there is a hall called Hall of Columbus. And Columbus is a town in the state of Ohio. Columbus, Ohio. But why is it called America? It should have been called Columbiana, because the real explorer who went there and landed there was an Italian, Amerigo Vespucci, who discovered the South America and the North America before Christopher Columbus. So, as a gratitude, they call these two continents by the name of Amerigo Vespucci, America. South America, North America. So, the whole of the United States was celebrating the 400th anniversary of that event from October 1892 to September 1893. The 500th anniversary was celebrated between October 1992 and September 1993 in our own time. Every major city had been given one responsibility to organize one program, and Chicago got the major share. The reason being, Chicago was the fastest growing city of the US at that time. A large number of immigrants pouring into Chicago via the lakes, the 5 lakes and Canada. So Chicago had been given two major events. One was an exposition, an exhibition, displaying the latest advances in American technology. The last function of the 400th anniversary for the whole of the United States was the Parliament of Religions, September 11th to 27th, 1893. Swamiji got down from the compartment. He says, I was completely bewildered by the crowd. I just did not know where to go. Thomas Cook had not made any arrangements for hotels. At that time, a hotel agent came on the platform to him, asked him, Sir, do you have... He saluted him. He thought he is a Maharaja. Sir, do you have a hotel reservation? Swamiji said, no. Please come with me. I'll take you to a very good hotel. He called a black porter who brought the boxes down, put them in a trolley, and they walked to the hotel. The hotel was so close, Dearborn Avenue. They went to the hotel. Swamiji checked in. He was given the key to the room. He had to go up 3 flights by a rickety, old-fashioned elevator. Britishers call it lift, Americans call it elevator. He came to his room. The black porter was standing there. He saluted Swamiji. Swamiji gave him some money. The fellow saluted again and went away. Swamiji says, there were my 3 boxes arranged around the bed. I sat on the bed, and for 10 minutes I was completely lost. What am I doing here? Why have I come here? And he says, my first thought was, I want to go back home. It happens to many people who go abroad for the first time, especially we characters. We characters are so sentimental. We want our rasam, sambar, rice everywhere we go around the world. If you don't get them, we are lost. I went to Germany for the first time in 1968 June to a small village German language course. I was accommodated in a room in a carpenter's family. I was taken there and they gave me a beautiful room. I sat on the bed with my boxes by my side. I was not aware of what Swami Vivekananda's response was, but I had the same experience. I want to go back home. But the German government was very clever. They had kept with them the return ticket. They said, until you finish the language course, you won't get the ticket back. But in no time, I started loving that place. You know, nestling in the foothold of the Alps. You come out of your house, look to the south, there were the Alps. Just about 40 kilometers away from the Austrian border to that beautiful town, Salzburg. Have you seen the movie The Sound of Music?
Yes.
The whole movie was shot in Salzburg. I have seen all those places. I have been to all those places. And even now when I see Sound of Music, my mind goes back to those days. When I had visited Salzburg and seen those wonderful sights. Beautiful town and beautiful city. And for me, of greater importance, the birthplace of Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, my favorite composer of the Western classical music. There is a board, Mozart's Geburtshaus, the house of his birth. They literally worship Mozart in Austria. He is like a god. Swamiji was very, very fond of Mozart. He loved the music of Mozart. I will tell you later his reactions when he happened to go to Vienna, where Mozart lived and died. So Swamiji was lost. Then after 10 minutes he recovered, came down to the lobby, made some inquiries about the office of the Parliament of Religions. He was told it is walking distance. So he came there, introduced himself, and one person in charge gave him the bad news. There was no good news, only bad news. The last date for the registration of delegates was already over. No delegate would be taken unless he or she, there were no she's actually, only one she, Annie Besant, unless he had been sponsored by a religious organization. Swamiji had no credentials. And the parliament was commencing only on the 11th of September. This was till 25th or so of July, 1.5 months away. Swamiji was disappointed. He came back to the hotel, went up to his room, took out his purse, counted the money he had. He made inquiries about the hotel charges. He realized with that money, he would not last there for more than 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, he would be bankrupt. And United States of America is not India, where a sannyasi can go from door to door, bhavati bhiksham dehi. What would the Americans have done? Promptly arrested him and put him in the clinker, dispatched him back to India. And Swamiji would have come back ignominiously. Right? He just didn't know what to do. He came down to the lobby. He met a few Indians there. He told them his problem. They said, send a cablegram home that they can send you some more money, care of Thomas Cook. He said he would do that. Then he asked the hotel people. The hotel people gave him a good advice. Go to a cheaper city, stay there till the 11th September, maybe even at the last moment, the parliament people will take you as a delegate. He took that advice. What about my baggage? He said, leave the baggage here. Take one bag, valise with you. We will take care of the whole lot. Unfortunately, Swamiji did not bother to make a note of the name of the hotel. He completely forgot about it. He could not even remember the street, and that landed him in a mess. So which is the cheapest city he can go to? They said, Boston. You know, in Boston, there is a Vedanta society. And one of my oldest friends of the Ramakrishna order, Swami Tyagananda, he is the secretary there, who was formerly editor of Vedanta Kesari. And Swami Tyagananda has now written a book, Walking the Walk. I would recommend to both of you to read that book. Anju and Parul. Walking the Walk, small book, all about Karma Yoga. What exactly is Karma Yoga according to Swami Vivekananda? His language is very simple, very easy to understand. I am recommending that book to two of you because it was written for Americans, not for Indians. It is written from their point of view. Boston. So Swamiji decided to go to Boston. He caught a train. and he had to change in Philadelphia on the way. You know, Philadelphia is one of the most sacred places for Americans in the United States. Why? It was in Philadelphia that the Declaration of Independence was signed by a group of people headed by George Washington and containing famous names like Benjamin Franklin and others. It was in Philadelphia that the flag of rebellion against the British was hoisted and raised. So Philadelphia has now become very famous. It has got a very famous bell called Liberty Bell, which unfortunately is cracked. Because of some reason it developed a crack. And for the Americans, even that crack in that bell is holy. They don't want to get it repaired. They preserve it as it is. In Philadelphia, Swamiji caught a train to go to Boston. He entered the compartment and he saw the same lady who had traveled with him from Vancouver to Winnipeg. This time, the middle-aged lady became bolder. Are you from India? He said, yes. Have you come for the Parliament of Religions? Swamiji said, yes. Then where are you going? This train is going to Boston. The Parliament is in Chicago. So he explained to her his predicament. She said, do you know where to stay in Boston? Well, I have been given 2 or 3 addresses. Do one thing. Go and stay there. If things work out all right, wonderful. Otherwise, come and stay with me. I live outside Boston in a small place called Breezy Meadows. I have my own cottage. Why don't you come in? Metcalf. Breezy Meadows is the name of the cottage. Metcalf is the town. Why don't you come and stay with me? Swamiji says, even before the Parliament, I acquired my first American mother. How the women of Swamiji adopted him as their own in the life of Swamiji in the United States. All of them adopted him as, I don't know, he went on collecting mothers, sisters and brothers like postage stamps. That was the kind of personality he was. People used to fall in love with him and say, follow backwards to accommodate him. Swamiji stayed in Boston, didn't like it. Then one day he came to, by the way, let us go through some of these slides. This is that exhibition. You can see a bird's eye view. In the sky you see a balloon. Advertisements, balloon being used for advertisement. But today it is prohibited. Why? Because of low flying aircraft. You know, they can create accidents for aircrafts. If they get caught in the engine, God help the aircraft. And in the distance you see this Ferris wheel. Introduced for the first time in public, the Ferris wheel. And one more thing. For the first time in the history of the United States, a public place had been lit by electricity. Thanks to 2 people. Thomas Alva Edison, who invented direct current technology, and the one who realized it in practice, George Westinghouse. Any electrical engineer here? Or anybody who has studied electrical engineering? Westinghouse later went on to found a corporation. Westinghouse, after the Parliament, after this event, switched over his loyalty to alternating current. All this is alternating current. Today, direct current can be found only with a restricted use. Westinghouse went on to found a corporation, Westinghouse Corporation. Today it has taken a new name and it is a multinational corporation with branches in India. Do you know what is the name of that corporation now? Have you seen the logo? GE, General Electric. Westinghouse Corporation became General Electric. It is there in India also. But all this was in the future. Swamiji went and had a look at this twice or thrice. He says it would have taken easily a month to go through all these stalls. One day he had a very peculiar experience. He was walking along with his turban, typical safa. The tail was hanging loose at the back. He felt someone tugging at the tail. He turned around. It was a short black boy. Swamiji turned around and asked him in chaste English, "Why did you do that?" The boy was abashed. He never realized that this weird-looking character knows English. "Why do you dress like that?" The boy said. That gave a theme for a talk for Swamiji. Customs and manners. Below the skin we are all the same, but it is customs and manners which separate us. How do you become friendly with the people of any country you are visiting for the first time? Learn their customs and manners first and behave accordingly. All IIT graduates, before leaving for United States, have to attend a compulsory course in the United States Information Service, where they are taught customs and manners of Americans. When I went to the German Language Institute, the first 1 week we didn't learn the language. We learned the customs and manners. And we were told, this is a small village, you are all likely to be invited by the local people for dinner. When you go there, you have to take flowers for the Hausfrau, the lady of the home, but no red roses. If you take red roses, you'll be in trouble. Why? When you propose marriage to a girl, you offer a red rose. There is even a song, "Red Roses for my young lady." In our institute, there was an Iranian. He couldn't understand clearly what the Germans were saying. He was invited to somebody's house for dinner. He took a bunch of beautiful red roses, tried to give it to the Hausfrau. The man came, Bavarian, and slapped him on the cheek and told him, "Get lost. I didn't invite you to propose to my wife. I invited you for dinner." Swamiji learned a lesson from that. Then he shifted to the house of this lady, Catherine Abbott Sanborn, an intellectual. She was a school teacher. Later she became a lecturer, author of books. And once Swamiji was her guest, she found that Swamiji was equally an intellectual. They hit it off very well. Throughout his life, he remembered Catherine Abbott Sanborn as his American mother. And this is a photograph. This is her house, Breezy Meadows. And this is a photo taken in the parlor. You can see Swamiji is plump. Why is he plump? Sea voyage. In sea voyage, you imbibe a lot of ozone, which increases your hunger. You eat more and put on a little bit of weight. Another reason, you have to walk only on the deck, and that is the only exercise you have. Nothing else. This lady introduced Swamiji to all the people in and around that area. She had a cousin living in Boston, Franklin Sanborn. Franklin Sanborn had already studied the Indian scriptures. He belonged to a group of people called Transcendentalists. I don't know whether you have heard of Transcendentalists. Many Americans themselves are not aware of them. They were the earliest environmental people in the world. Henry Thoreau recommended to people to go back to the villages. He was scared of urbanization. And what has happened in India today? Bangalore has become a cesspool. You know the kind of epithets which are given to Bangalore? Garbage city. Why? Overcrowding in the city, villages are being deserted. Even at that time, they had sounded the warning bell to Americans. And what has happened in California to Los Angeles? Los Angeles as a city appears to have no boundaries. You go from one end to the other, you simply go on driving. Driving, you never come to the end. That is what has happened to New York now. That is why these people, in those days itself, had recommended, learn how to go back to the jungles, villages. They formed a community called themselves Transcendentalists. And they were aware of the Bhagavad Gita and the Upanishads, which had come to them from London through a poet, Thomas Carlyle. Thomas Carlyle got it from France. The French got it from Kolkata, and Kolkata got it from Agra. Have you heard of Darashiko? No? Indian history. Shantam. You haven't read about the Mughal period at all? Have you heard of Aurangzeb?
Yes.
His eldest brother was Darashiko. Darashiko was a Sanskrit scholar. He got 58 Upanishads translated into Persian. And those made their way to Germany and from there to United States. They were available to these people, translations. 1775, Sir Charles Wilkins, the Secretary of Warren Hastings, translated the Bhagavad Gita into English, which was published in London in English. Warren Hastings has written a preface. You know what he has written in the preface? Long after the sun has set on the British Empire, this book will continue to inspire generations of people to come. Warren Hastings. What a prophetic statement. They were aware of all those things. And Franklin had studied all the books. The moment he came to know an Indian sannyasi is staying with his cousin, he came running from Boston. And he told Swamiji, you must meet my friend, Professor John Henry Wright, Professor of Greek and Greek philosophy, Harvard University. You know, Harvard University in those days was the most famous university in the whole world for philosophy. Today it is very well known for management and philosophy also. He and his wife met Swamiji, Mary Tappan Wright, with their 2 children. In one of their talks, Professor Wright casually asked Swami Vivekananda, you have come all the way from India, why don't you attend the Parliament of Religions? Swamiji said, yes, I want to, but these are the problems, obstacles. One is I have no credentials. I don't belong to any religious organization. The last date is over. And Professor Wright said, rubbish. The chairperson of the Parliament, he is a good friend of mine. I am going to send a letter to him with a copy to you, and then I will tell him I am recommending you, sponsoring you. They better admit you as a delegate, or else they will hear from me. See? Strange. Life is very strange. You remember I told you one day, find out the circumstances which brought you here. See how many things are happening in the life of Swamiji. And he always used to say, the hand of Sri Ramakrishna is behind all these things. He is getting all this done. So Professor Wright wrote a letter of recommendation and credentials. In the credentials, there is a very famous sentence. You find that sentence in the report of the Parliament of Religions, huge book. This man knows more of philosophy than all the professors of philosophy of United States put together. What compliments from a professor of philosophy. He knows more of philosophy than all the professors of philosophy of the US put together. The letter copy was given to Swamiji, and then Swamiji expressed another problem he was facing. I have written home to Alasinga Perumal for money. The money has not yet come. Swamiji was not aware. The money had already come. It was in Chicago and Thomas Cook and Sons. But Thomas Cook and Sons did not know where Swamiji was. So it was waiting for him there. Then Professor Wright, his wife Mary, Catherine Abbott Sanborn, Franklin Sanborn, the four of them pooled their resources, made a purse and gave it to Swamiji. With that purse, Swamiji caught a train from Boston to return to Chicago on the afternoon of 9th September 1893. He was still not out of the woods. The train reached Chicago in a railway station with which Swamiji was not familiar. Around 7 o'clock in the evening, Swamiji got down with his bag. The train left for the next destination. Swamiji searched in all the pockets. He had lost everything. The list of addresses, copy of the credentials, and the money which had been given to him. We leave him there, poor fellow. Pick him up tomorrow. Don't worry, he comes to the Parliament of Religions.
Yeah.
Otherwise his course would not be here. Otherwise I would have said this is the end. Or probably there would have been no Vivekananda University also. Why? He would not have been known. He would have probably gone into the limbos of history. But again, strange circumstances. Unexpected events. I think this is what is called serendipity, isn't it? You try to do something and you try to do and you find out doing something totally different. Things never go according to plan, but they have their own way of doing things according to their own plan. So tomorrow we continue, and tomorrow we are going to hear Swamiji speaking from the platform of the Parliament of Religions, that famous speech, Sisters and Brothers of America. As he says, from that day onwards, throughout his life, he did not have a moment of peace. There is a penalty he had to pay for becoming world famous. And you are going to see how the life proceeds. Until now, the life has been in one particular road. Now it takes a totally different turn. Hello? So we close with a prayer. Harihi Om Tat Sat.
Harihi Om Tat Sat.
Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.
Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.